So we have another strange movie here, and this one doesn't waste any time. Because the first thing you see in this movie is something rather odd and unsettling. And I will say that that thing was so simple, yet surprisingly creepy and effective. So kudos to whoever came up with that idea, because it was a good one. However, it's actually sort of a sneak peek teaser for what's in store later, as it's not really given any sort of explanation until a fair bit later on in the movie. Now, it does also definitely help set the mood and make you wonder what's really going on behind the scenes here. But anyway, after that rather odd little intro, we then jump into the rest of the movie and we get into the actual plot. And the story here follows a young man who is invited to stay with an old friend of his. This old friend lives in a nice big house and is apparently rather well off. But it becomes very apparent that something's not quite right in this house. And things go from there and slowly get increasingly strange and unsettling. And the thing with this one is I literally had no idea where this movie was heading for most of it. Like, it really doesn't give you much in the way of clues as to where it wants to take this story. It just sort of slowly drifts in some vague direction, and the outcome is very difficult to predict. Which I wouldn't call a problem, in fact it just adds to the overall tension and suspense. Because there's certainly some tension here, but you don't really know how that tension is going to be released, what form it's going to take, and how the whole situation is going to resolve itself. And the characters definitely don't give you much to work with either, because they're all sort of played in this stiff and wooden way that doesn't convey very much emotion usually. I mean, it's just very difficult to read them and to figure out what's going on inside their heads. Add to that this sort of a formal dialogue that doesn't sound exactly natural, and what you end up is a rather cryptic and strange tone that means the whole movie could basically go in any direction at the drop of a hat. Which again just makes it feel unpredictable and enhances that feeling of unease throughout the entire movie. Then they also of course throw in some random stuff like the sleeping bag scene. That just confuses me further and makes me wonder how you even come up with something like that. There are also some other smaller elements to the movie that serve as perhaps a bit of a misdirect. They're interesting details that appear like they might be important, but a lot of them end up serving no apparent purpose, not one that I could decipher anyway. Which could be either intentional or it could be a sign of shoddy writing. But yeah, this one is a very small little indie movie with a very limited cast. And basically the entire thing takes place inside this one house, which is a smart way to go about it on a budget. It's also a rather short movie at around 70 minutes, but I think it was more or less the perfect length for what it was. Any longer and it could have become a problem, so yeah, no real complaints here. And it's just generally a good looking and well shot movie too that managed to more or less nail the atmosphere it was going for. So on the technical side of things, I think they did a great job with what limited resources they had. And in general, I didn't have too many issues with this one, but at the same time, I didn't quite love it. But I do think it's a well-made little movie that achieved what it set out to do. And I did enjoy the ride, so I'm thinking I'll give this one something like a low 7. Boop. However, would I recommend this? You know, I think there's definitely an audience for this one. So if you think that's you, go ahead and check this one out. Or, you know, you could also just skip it. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel because that would be fantastic.